Greetings and salutations, and it's Wednesday, so it's episode 41, Brew, of, what's it? Hashtag Waved Yellow. Welcome, thanks for joining us. Gary, I see production got us in another shop again, workshop.
That's right.
I'm quite impressed. Catering came along. Dragon, I feel full of energy now. I'm pumped up. I've got my cousins with me. My three cousins.
You've got your cousins with you, and we're not sitting at Tash's.
And I've got notes from production. I've got my glasses.
Jesus.
Life is very good.
And
Right.
makeup did nothing with my hair. I mean, look at me.
Oh, Jesus, makeup can't do anything with your hair. It's a lost cause. It needs weed eater, Gary.
One of the cousins is online.
Hey, Brew, how's it? What, is he in Tasha's again?
I don't know.
Or still?
Ricky, are you in Tash's? Where are you sitting, brother? Listen,
Right,
it was a great and a sad week all in one. Eh?
Why was it sad, Gary?
Well, unfortunately, two ladies had accidents in cars. And I don't mean it nasty. Don't get
Is
me
that
wrong.
a joke? It's
No,
like
no. One was
It's like a seal walked into a club.
Yeah, I mean, the one girl was in America doing a demonstration in a jet dragster,
car.
and unfortunately went south, and I didn't get the full details, but unfortunately
She didn't make the crash.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then the
Sophia
other one
Flourish.
was Sophia Flourish, which had that massive. That must have been I'll tell you something. That is one of the most craziest accidents I've ever seen.
Gary, it was quite weird. I went to the bush. So I was watching animals and things. No, this was serious stuff. There were cheetahs, like two cheetah brothers. They hadn't been seen for 3 months. And then, so now this is the first game drive I've been on for a long time, test driving a Land Rover game viewing vehicle. And we see cheetahs. So they just cruise right in front of us. And then, like the biggest buffalo I've seen in my entire life.
Comes walking on the other side, and then a video where the accident comes through on this side.
No, there was no accident. It was unbelievable.
No, I'm talking about the video that we posted.
Yeah, then there was that
the
accident, and you see the race. Now, it's, okay, to give it its official title, it's basically the Macau Grand Prix, but it is the Formula 3, the FIA Formula 3 World Cup event.
Yeah.
So she had a massive crash. Luckily, 7-hour or 11-hour operation, long operation, and it appears that she's got some spinal damage, and we don't know what's going to come out of it. So she joins, in terms of people with
I don't know who was going to grab it faster, you or me.
cat-like reactions. But so in terms of people who's suffering through adversity with racing at the moment, she joins Robert Wickens, Billy Munger, and Robert Kubica. So Robert Wickens, he had that massive IndyCar crash.
That's right.
Really, lots of damage in his spinal column. Yesterday, he started gait training. So they've got this harness, they pick him up, and he's now got to get the nerves.
So it keeps.
So it keeps the gait. The walking, apparently that's what they call it.
Yeah.
And then Billy Munger, of course, he scribbled his legs when he drove up the back of another Formula 3 car. But he's back racing now.
Yeah.
And then, along with Moses, the biggest comeback ever is Robert Kubica into Formula 1.
Yeah.
So it looks like
What a world.
He's signed for Williams.
While we're on there, I'm just going on about that.
So yeah,
Willie Adlam, thanks for joining us. And Ricky, he says, I'm there. Which is his answer to Tash's. And he says, Tash's coffee for a catch-up, guys, sometime or other. I have no idea when that's.
We're waiting for the invite. So just to go back to Macau, we don't only follow. And how crazy is this? Dan Ticktum, you who will remember Dan Ticktum.
Okay, help us remember him.
He was the guy who got the Murin with his teammate in British Formula 3 2 years ago, passes 10 cars under the safety car and drives flat out into his teammate, gets a 2-year ban, they suspended. So Dick, sorry,
Dick!
Well, he was a dick then. And anyway, so he won, dominated the whole thing, and then Mickey Schumacher came 5th.
You see that he's teaming up with Vettel in the Rock Cup. What's that you're drinking?
I told you, it's Dragon Energy. I'm fire breathing.
Yeah. See what happens.
So now I want to talk about Monster Energy.
Yeah, you get to some of these nice guys over here and they give us this fancy stuff. And this stuff is lekker, Oaks.
Oh, geez, Gary.
But it is. It's
Okay,
nice.
Gary, just watch my eyes.
Yeah.
I want to say something to you.
Yes.
We need you to focus, Gary. This show, it's number 41.
Okay.
Focus.
I'm focused.
Right. Gary says he's focused. So on that note, we go to the final event of NASCAR this year. And that's a cue.
Yes.
You're going to leave us and talk to our guest.
I've got to go and find him.
Yeah.
I know he's running around
because
somewhere.
we actually, for those of you who haven't worked out, we're sitting in Redline's motoring adventures workshop. Terence Marsh is the head honcho, the main man, the big wheel. He will tell us, he'll join us in a couple of minutes. So the top 4 go into the final race of NASCAR race in Miami at Homestead. And it was absolutely fascinating. I was loving every moment of it. Kevin Harvick it's a day-night race, so they start in the day, clearly, and it goes into night, so the track conditions change. Somebody worked that out. So Harvick was dominating during the day, but then the sun went away, and then Joey Logano won. So Logano is a champion. I think it's great. There was a bit of a crash, teammates crashing into each other, controversy. Anyway, NASCAR's over. And that's it for the next year. So now, did you put the mic on Terence?
Ask him. Speak to him.
Terence, can you hear us?
Copy.
Copy 10-4. I'll tell you what. Terence, come and join us. And I've got to say, now, Terence has been the consummate marketing man. Watch, Gary, how the label works. Terence, how's it?
Carl, how you doing, man?
Fabulous. Thanks a lot for joining us. And thanks for the invite. You know, we said we wanted to come and come to your workshop, your logistics people and our logistics people. It was a massive operation to get here. There was scripting and all sorts of things. But thank you very much. So it's a long way from prime media and advertising to racing cars and now the business of motorsport.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey. I mean, to be honest with you, most of our media and marketing skills we brought into the business. The racing side, we've probably been busy for this is my 20th year now, you know, but probably 60 of them on a competitive side of it. And then 4 years ago deciding, well, we just wanted to do things differently, you know.
What is that key difference? Because one of the things that, I think the racing industry acknowledges that you do some pretty good marketing and activation stuff. You bring that to a new level. The business that you're currently in, as opposed to finding sponsors and running a racing car team, explain to us what that really is, because I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I think, Colin, for the best part of 12 years, we ran as a motorsport team, and we had sponsors, and with those were deliverables, and you had to produce results. But you really had 6 or 7 events a year. I mean, there's 52 weeks in a year. What do you do for the balance of those weeks?
Got to mow the lawn.
So for us, I just thought we needed to come up with a different idea and a different concept. And how could we be alive and active for a longer period during the year? How could we give, be it partners or sponsors, a better return on investment? And that was kind of the gist of what we went after. So 4 years ago, we just switched everything off from a sponsorship point of view, and we decided to go on our own journey where we build our own business. We build our cars. We are 100% privately owned business. We have no factory support. We have an objective of building one of the best cars in the world, or one of the better cars in the world, if you want to put it that way, as a private organization. We sell those cars around the world, and then we provide a journey for each of those customers around the world. Customers are between 35 and 65 years old. They're wealthy, influential people. And
Gary, I ticked one of the boxes there. I'm between 35 and 65. Wealthy and influential. Sorry, I won't be one of your customers.
Just a quick one. Your friend Reggie Routers Online, and Reggie asked you a question. Is my name on the car yet?
It is, but on the wrong side of the car from where Reggie would want to be, you know. So
I think the follow-up question to that is the check in the bank?
Yeah, so to go back to what I was saying is that, there's a lot of guys around the world that have aspirations, whether it be Dakar, whether it be Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, whether it's to race in China, and there really isn't a platform for them to get there. So we wanted to go on our own. We wanted to take our call it our 16 years of experience, we wanted to build cars. We wanted to then sell those cars. We wanted those cars to activate around the world.
How many cars have you built so far?
The car behind you is the 23rd car in our history, if you want. It's the last one of a batch of cars that we built.
We'll talk about that later. Sorry to interrupt. So, no. 23 cars worldwide, and this experience. So you've got a guy who meets you and, hey, I've got this dream. I want to run in Dakar. Take us through the journey that you take them on.
The easiest way to explain it is to give you a case study. You know, I met a guy, Sean Rates, who was he was at the time, I think, 46 years old. Okay, this was 3 years ago, and his goal was to do Dakar. At that stage, he was in Ferraris. He had a couple of Ferraris. He did his cannonball runs and he did his breakfast runs. But he had a huge sense of adventure, and he wanted to fulfill that goal, that dream. And he'd never been on a mountain bike, never been off-road, never been on a motorbike, you know. So the base was really low. And we spent 2 years with him. We sold him 3 different cars during the journey. He trained 2 years in the South African Championship, which is considered the best championship in the world.
So you took a guy who hadn't raced off-road at all, or I mean, apart from driving his bucky on a dirt road to get to the game farm, and take him through the techniques, racing, training, sand training, dune training.
Yeah, everything. I mean, like I said, the best championship in the world, and regarded as the most professional championship in the world in cross country, is South Africa. We have incredible technology here in South Africa from a car perspective, and the terrain itself is so varied. So for us to train them is...
Terence, Gary wants to turn your volume up, because the cool thing, just reach into his pocket, Gary, won't you?
Never know what I'm going to find in the middle.
I'm glad you went in that pocket.
So I love to see one of the monitors goes on and he like moves the camera. So right, so part of the technical issues is just, you know, we live and we learn. Thanks for the comments about telling us to turn the volume up, which Gary has now done. Thank you very much for that, Gary. So you take the guy, you remember to refocus the camera. So you take the guy and you train him, and then we got interrupted by the sound department.
So I think first and foremost is to provide that platform. So you've got to get everybody, most of these guys between, you know, our target market can afford the cars. That's the easy part. You know, everybody can write the check out. But how do they actually get? You know, you get a ticket to the party, but how do you actually perform at the party? You know, so we really walked them through the whole process. With Sean, it took us 2 years, 2 years in the South African Championship and 4 trips to Namibia into the dunes to prepare him for Dakar. He went to the 2016 Dakar and he finished 38th overall on debut. So, you know, that's a case study, and we have numerous different ones that we've worked with around the world. As I said, the 23 customers, the youngest is 32, the oldest is 69.
And you've moved into the Chinese market as well. You were saying how interesting it is?
Yeah, I mean, last year we've been 3 years in China now.
Do you speak any Mandarin or any Chinese?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, I look Chinese after a few beers. That's about as.
And I believe you're a fan of the local cuisine.
I do. It's dispatching their cuisine, which is very uncomfortable in China. And the one thing in China which is quite nice though is that you know, being pretty tall, you can see for kilometers. You know, because the general nation is so short.
We do have viewers in China. Ni hao.
Ni hao.
Oh, that's not Chinese.
Wait,
but hey,
you guys deal with that one.
We won't go there because apparently there's no focus. There are a whole lot of news stories that are breaking. Apparently, there's going to be so the opportunity exists for somebody who doesn't have the skill to, and I like the way you put it there, join the party. You're going to teach him to dance and to be a hero. And what about somebody who has done some driving before? Let's take, I don't know, the fastest flying Dutchman who might live in Belito, who might want to rekindle a love for driving off-road. Could somebody like that come to you and say, listen, run me in a race series?
Yeah, that's a bit of a special case. That, I mean, there's
a very special case.
There's a problem with the wiring harness there. I think so. You know, probably got to get someone like Professor Martin Roots to have a look at that before. I'm not sure we can work with it, but it's a challenge we'd probably take on. We've got a couple of programs we're busy with now where we've got rallying guys that have come across, and we've got some track guys that have come across. They generally are sprinters, so they only know, how to drive at 100 to 110% on a known environment. Now to try and get them to drive at 80% in an unknown terrain, because we maximize our pace on unknown terrain. They maximize in known. Two different principles. I have the utmost respect for what they do. So they're too fast in our space, and generally the first to the scene of the accident. So we'll find them wrapped around a tree or upside down, or they've taken a wheel off. So that's a different training. Where they fast, we need to bring them back and teach them endurance, how to ride as fast as the terrain allows you to drive, not as fast as you think you can drive.
Yeah, and you don't have to go, Reggie, you don't have to go flat out all the time, just the appropriate time. So Terence, we, just in the interest of time, I find the model that you've got absolutely fascinating, where you're providing the wherewithal for somebody to go and join the big party. Can we walk around and have a look at some of the cars and
yeah, sure. I just
stuff?
want to just give an insight into in the 23 that are kind of around. They all built the same. So what it means for the customer base is that South Africans can race in Dubai or in China or in Spain in exactly the same car without shipping cars, and vice versa. The Chinese come to South Africa or to the UAE because all the cars, and we have rental cars in those different regions. So it's a lot easier than having to ship, because you can lose up to 6-8 weeks just in logistics of cars on water and sea freight. So.
And never mind, you can lose a whole lot of euros shipping cars around.
That you can do.
Let's go and have a look at some of these cars. We're going to start off with, Gary, very carefully you told me that we start off with, this is the original spec of the car. So it's got a Nissan V8 engine in it, and the most important thing probably is the solid back axle. You can see over here, it's multi-link. So you've got the radius rods, which control the steering of the axle, so that it actually stays perpendicular to the center line of the car. And then these two top arms control the nose attitude of the diff, as well as the side attitude. Because guys, that maths and science is what we live for, and it's life's about circles and triangles. So you'll see so many triangles on these things. There's a triangle, and if those two sides stay the same, that point cannot move. So we've got a gearbox roughly in the middle over here. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is when we go and have a look at the other car, you'll see what things are about. And an engine in the front, and lacquer exhaust pipes, and all the cool things. And you see that coming around here, Gary, to try and keep the lengths of the exhaust pipe the same, so that you don't have the left bank fighting the right bank. This is not the Middle East. And then power brakes, quite aptly named. And you have a look, these are the standard 4-pot brakes, double Riger shocks. So this is an old tech car, Kevlar carbon weave, and we're going to contrast that with directly on the other side there, Gary, another car. So Terence, this thing here is the latest and greatest and trickiest of your cars.
Yeah, so what we've done, I mean, the first car that we built, out of interest, that's the first one. That's the last one. This is the first one. That was done in 2013. All solid axles, we said, they're the most reliable, cost-effective, strongest cars in the world to run. They really are. But what the new regulations have pushed towards is the movement of the engines, independent rear suspension. So really much the front of the car becomes the back of the car. Okay. With that supposedly comes some better handling. And with the demand, we kind of thought after all these years, let's try and take everything to the next level. So that's very much where this car comes from.
So this car is mid-mounted, independent suspension, carbon fiber, all the tricks and stuff that you've learned in the journey from building the car 1 to 23, and you've now got something that is kind of state-of-the-art-ish, bang up modern off-road truck.
Look, it's in the 20 years that we've been around, obviously we've learned a hell of a lot. As I said, we're just a small privately owned business. We got a whole lot of businessmen that get together. I've surrounded myself really with some good engineers and good technicians, and that's really the heart of this operation. I'm just the used car salesman, but this particular car it's the best that we could come up and develop in with our ability and our experience. It's a full carbon body. There's more than 57 molds in making up the body. There was
57.
57. There was more than 2 million rand spent on developing the body, with all aerodynamics and light and weight all put in. So it's a full carbon body. It runs water-cooled brakes, also power brakes, water-cooled. With the new regulations, the engine, the V8 engine, at the moment the car is actually designed for a twin turbo, which is where the new regulations are going, but those regulations were delayed by 1 year. So we put a V8, 5-litre V8 in the car for now.
And that's Nissan V8. So, Gary, Terence was talking about the water-cooled brakes, a power brake. Now, one of the brakes take rotational or kinetic energy of the vehicle going forward. They turn it into rotational energy, and you'll know your friend, I think it's Mr. Newton, who said that the energy just changes form. So you want to slow down, so you take the energy from rotational and turn it into a bit of noise, but mostly heat. So you've got to get rid of the heat, and you need some cast iron that absorbs the heat. Air flows through here, but the brake fluid and the pistons particularly get very, very hot. So now when the pistons get hot and the seals don't really like it, and you then plumb water through the caliper, and it cools the caliper body down, cools the fluid down, and looks after the pistons and the seals. The other really cool thing, it's a fully machined aluminium upright, and check these lines over here if you can see there, Gary. These lines here, that's as the milling machine. Just imagine my finger was a tool and goes up around like that, CNC mold. Lovely work. 2 Ragers, and then of course, and one of the reasons you don't really have carbon fiber underneath here is that the Kevlar is a lot more tougher. So it can take more blasting by the stones. But where you're looking for ultimate strength, and the other thing that carbon fiber is super important for is because it looks cool. Carbon fiber makes a car faster immediately because it looks cool. But there's really some cool things here with getting air out. It doesn't help shoving all the air in the front. So this, you've got a little bit of, almost like in some of the endurance cars, kind of like a splitter, sort of that sort of thing. But you're bringing the air into the engine compartment here, past the reservoirs of the shocks, so to try and get some cooling, and then getting rid of the air. So you'll notice, remember from when we do endurance racing, when you're putting fuel in, you've got to take air out. So just imagine you're putting air in. If you don't take it out, it just sits there and goes nowhere slowly. And then around the back here, so now you see the cool carbon fiber Kevlar weave, the steering wheel, spare wheel mount.
Steering wheel?
Gary, I'm sorry, my mind is already inside the car because that's where I want to open the door and check it out, and nice carbon fiber. So the spare wheel sits over here, and it's got to be a pretty sturdy mount, also with spare wheel nuts. So we're going to try and we're going to go there now, Gary.
Okay.
This is the jack, and it's a long hydraulic jack, and the piston comes out here. There's only one jack per side, lifts the whole car up. And then if we open the door here, mostly you need a jack when you're in the trouble. So, and you're outside the car, and you see this little switch here, up for jack to go up and down for jack to go. The logic is stunning. Right, so there's lots of carbon fiber, removable steering wheel, gear levers and machining and all sorts of stuff. And Gary, one of the super technical issues in off-road racing,
don't tell me that's your fuel gauge,
is the stick. The stick, Terence, this is still the most accurate fuel measuring device in the world. So if you have a look here, Gary, and I've learned my hands-free kit. No. I've got a hands-free kit for the mic. It works quite well. So basically, it's a dipstick.
100%. The thing is calibrated on the system itself, on electronics. But what we found is it cannot be trusted. It's not as accurate as we'd like it to be. So
the stick or the
no,
electronics?
Actually electronics.
This is still the most accurate
if
method.
all else fails, that's where we go to.
And the other cool thing about it is that you can fold it, and then it becomes a weapon to beat up your navigator when he gets you lost. Don't mock the Chinese. They do all sorts of cool things.
Just while we are there, just ask to Sheldon from the Linda. Calvin's online. Dorian Micah, nice of you to join us. Right.
I've got to tell you about Kelvin,
Yes.
but we'll get to the end of the show. So watch fantastic news with Kelvin. He's going to cause mayhem this weekend. Gary, come down here with me. Hey, the old man's grunting and groaning.
Are we
Okay, so now just watch we now at the bottom, and this is where stuff gets real. So the engine in this car is lower and further back than in the previous car. And we did see that the gearbox on the other car was over here, but here there's a whole lot of nothingness. There's just a torque tube that is bolted onto the bell housing. Yeah. It's like a hell of an extension. And that extension goes back, and the SADEV gearbox sits there with its transfer case on the side. And this here is the front. This goodie here is the front. Geez, Gary, what happened to your lighting department? This is the front prop shaft. And then clearly, Gary, the other one is the rear prop shaft. Because if we don't have front and rear, then we're just going to go nowhere slowly. So just hold on before you go there. One of the things with the vehicles, again, getting air out, is moving it into space and finding lower pressure areas. Because air, and again, physics and science, don't ever, everybody, you must do maths, you must do science. I'm a huge advocate for it, because if you don't, you'll never understand racing cars, and you won't be faster. So air will only go from high pressure to low pressure areas. So sometimes you need to create a low pressure area. The wheel arch, apart from looking cool, Brew, creates a low pressure area and gets rid of some air. The other cool thing here, well, there's so many cool things. It's so good. And Gary, Terence, I've got to say thank you very much for letting us grovel and crawl around your car.
That's an absolute
There's
pleasure.
some people who get twitchy when we look too deep with a camera. You haven't got super twitchy yet, but Gary, do you think we can try and get Terence twitchy? We'll try.
Right.
Okay,
Find something.
Radiator over here, and Terence, I gather this is a standard Nissan part, production part, that's because they work so well. And my first company I worked for was Datsun back in the day, so I've got a very, very soft spot for them. Right, back end suspension here. This is an IRS car, independent rear suspension, so you've got A-arms at the bottom, and these bushes, some teams are running rose joints in here or spherical bearings. These are hardened rubber, so that you've got some, you maybe give away something on ultimate performance, but from a reliability point of view and a durability point of view, you gain absolutely massively. Twin shocks. And then this thingy over here is the rear cradle or subframe. And notice here, Gary, how it's mounted on like cones. So you just offer this up to the chassis, and here's the other side of the mail, and it self-aligns and self-centers itself as it goes here. Now, the prop shaft coming to the back, because it sits on the side of the gearbox, means that it's on the side.
Yes.
So in order to run reasonable prop shaft angles, you've got to put the diff on the side, which means the prop shaft comes in here, and then you've got unequal length drive shafts. Not a cool idea. So you've got this little extension here with the extra bearing, and you can now run equal length drive shafts. Extra alternator running off the prop shaft so that you can alternate and make some electricity, and life is cool. And that's about all. Nice big fat Allen cap screws here. Nothing subtle about this car, Terence. So, and you've sold this one. This car's only like a couple of weeks old.
The car is about 4 weeks old, so it was developed in partnership with Shamir Varirara from SVR, effectively. So he's been one of our. He's raced in South Africa for the best part of 25 years. You know, he has an aspiration to go to Dakar this year. So we put the partnership together and jointly, collectively put our heads together and built what we believe to be one of the better cars in the world. There's still a lot of work to do on the car. Don't get me wrong. It's only
Work
3-4.
never stops, eh?
Yeah, it's 3-4 weeks old. It's the first one with a competitive kind of strategy behind it. Everything that we've looked at, from the position of the engine to the gearbox to moving the distribution of the weight of the spare wheels onto the side, everything has been looked. Every component, the aerodynamics. So we've really tried to take everything to the next level. So this is the car. We would probably only launch it to the market towards the end of 2019. It effectively is our 2020 car, but we've decided to take it to this year's Dakar. I think it's
Next year,
as in 2019,
which is like now.
It flies. Yeah, we will go and do some testing next week for a week with it before it flies to South America. I mean, we're completely mad to take a car that's 3 or 4 weeks old to Dakar, but we private. We hold it a businessman. We say, well, why not? We'll probably learn more in the 2-3 weeks in Dakar, then it'll take us 6 months to do that here. So that's the way we look at it.
Always the heat of competition sort of condenses and focuses the mind, and you find out about yourself and the car and the team.
Look, you must understand, in Dakar, it's we've taken 6 cars to Dakar and we've finished 5 of them. We've competed in 84 stages and we finished 82. So we know the Dakar. I don't know how well this car, we don't know. But it's exciting, if we were, be worried about failing all the time, we wouldn't go. The reality is we're going.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why you go racing. Is sometimes you the nail and sometimes you're the hammer. Apparently, this is what they tell me. So let's go and have just another quick look. Can we go down the back here, Gary, to the darker places, and we won't go in there too much. But this is where things start getting formed. And Terence, you said it. You explained you need to make so many cars. You've got a parallel manufacturing operation. Talk to us about that for the...
Yeah, so we basically, the chassis are produced both in Holland and here. So we have an operation in Holland that under license build the chassis. We also build chassis here. But in order to meet the demand, you need for us to have a double production facility in South Africa is a costly exercise. We are a hybrid business. We are the racing, we activating, we're doing corporate days, we're doing driver training, we're an exhibition, a show, or we're manufacturing. So we're very hybrid and we move around. So for us, we have basically a jig here which looks after our solid axle car. We have a jig right at the bottom that looks after our new RS car, and then we have a duplication in Holland on the solid axle car as well.
Gary, that's like super interesting. Let's take a walk over here. And for our friend in Mauritius, Terence, this 350Z, and all we need to do is show this, and Lee Phillips will remember this as a production car with proper brake cooling. You've got this car and you've rebuilt it, but let's get this car on a track. Come and run it in the endurance series.
It was really, to be honest with you, it was our objective and our goal. But the way the business has grown, we just don't have the time. So it was a great little project. It's a very special little car. We took us a while to find it.
This is Leroy Poulter's.
This is a championship one. Yeah, it was a championship, an original Sassel yellow and blue. So it took us a while to find it. We got it, and we had big ideas, and we've rebuilt it, and it's basically finished. But when we look at our calendar, I mean, it's crazy where we travel around the world and what we're doing. So for us to fit it in, it unfortunately is not going to happen. So we'll have to come up with an alternative strategy on that one.
And OMGTR?
Yeah, look, this is the car that won the 2016 Hill Climb. It was something we wanted to have in our garage. So we went and bought the car, and we use it mostly for promotional stuff. Whenever we get a chance to do with the Festival of Motoring or any track days, particularly at Kyalami, she's a bit big for Swartkorps. She's big and she's heavy, but they're very special. I mean, from a supercar perspective, bang for buck, it's just it's a lovely car, man.
And have you? I mean, the party trick on this thing is the full-on automatic launch.
No, look,
is just
I enjoy that the most. Is we do a lot of work for Nissan on GTR, whether it's driver training or whether it's any of the corporate entertainment. And for me, the best is the unannounced launch. When you got yourself pole position at a robot, you don't announce it, but you just inflict the launch control, and it's
just going back to Nissan. They're not a sponsor of yours; they are a customer of yours.
No, well, more of a partner.
You do work for them.
Yeah, they're more of a partner. I mean, we don't have any motorsport backing. They don't have a motorsport strategy. but we do a lot of what we call motoring adventure. So whether it's working with a Nissan Patrol, any of the 4x4 SUV stuff, whether it's working with GTR, whether it's using our race cars, whether it's on exhibitions, corporate days. We do a lot of work with their big VIPs. But everything's around activating, around basically we emotionalize the brand, and for that we get a partnership and an alignment.
And of course, with the latest car now, you've got IRS, and that ties in nicely with the marketing department because the new Nissan Bucky's independent rear suspension.
Well, the Patrol is, the Navara is something in between, but the same effect, effectively, we've got, if I look at the world, a big part of the world, probably 50% of the market that went to independent rear suspension is now reversing it. Because you must remember, the independent rear suspension car is very complicated to run. It's a lot more expensive to run than a solid axle. You need one more technician. So when you talk about Dakar, the budget for a Dakar for a technician is about 300,000 Rand. With that car, you have to have an extra technician.
And that's not just the 300,000 Rand, that's not what you pay the guy. There's massive costs to enter a technician, or you have to enter the technician into the race. So you buy a ticket from
we're paying 12,000 euro now for a technician. You still got to fly him there, you've got to put accommodation, you've got to pay him. So on a solid axle car, you can run 3. If you're really tight, you can run 2, But on an independent rear suspension, it's 3 times more costly to run independent rear, and it's 5 times more work. It's incredible how much more work you got to work on that particular car. But in the performance base where money is not an object, that's the route you would go.
But that's life, isn't it? That motorsport never stands still. If you're standing still, you're going backwards. You've got to keep moving, got to keep developing, got to keep making stuff. And I think it's absolutely magnificent. So this car's really, really cool. Gary, I've in my earpiece. Do you see this new earpiece that I'm wearing? It's made from unobtainium.
Just a quick couple of things so Terence can understand. See, Terence, Andrew Katay says, lack of development, Terence Marsh, Scott Temple's watching, Guy Linner's watching, everybody else is chirping. For those of you that are online, I'm going to ask Terence very nicely tonight when he gets home, when he's lying in bed, if he goes onto this thing, to actually personally answer all of your questions and say hi to each one of you. And I'm sure you'll agree to do that for us.
No problem. If it's not too technical, remember I'm just a used car salesman. So
did our production department warn you that there's homework to do afterwards?
No problems. No problems.
Well, I've got to say, thank you very much. It's always, I'm in a really privileged position because Gary and the production team get me to crawl under all sorts of into all sorts of interesting places. It's really interesting, and I love the insight, the business model of you still going racing, but at least you're surviving and you're not spending buckets of your own money.
I think, just in closing from my side, we've built the business. It's all about the journey. It's about the adventure. It's not about the result. For years we went after the result. It's a big black hole. It never ends. Every Monday morning you're developing. Your result on the weekend depends whether how good or bad a mood you are in, how much it impacts your business or not. Where in our world it was quite simple. If you work out every year, we get 54 hours of seat time. We do more than 6,000 kilometers of racing every year. So if you take your Rand value and divide it by 54 hours, or you divide it by 6,000 kilometers, there isn't a more cost-effective form of motorsport in the world. We just then changed that into adventure. And everywhere we go, it's about an adventure. Believe me, when we put our helmets on, we're going to be as competitive as everybody else. It's just that our outcome, everything is built around the journey.
And that's why it's red-lined motoring adventure. Absolutely awesome. Terence, we've got to wrap up with some stuff. No, we've got to talk about...
You promised everybody what you're going to say about...
Gary, you said we were going to go and sit down there.
Oh, okay, fine.
Okay, but I won't. So we'll just carry on. We'll talk. Because now I need my glasses. I've got to find the bloody thing. Because what's coming up? Who's doing what to whom in the future? Back to position 1. We spoke about super interesting. Going back to Dakar, Gary. Not Dakar, to NASCAR. Jimmy Johnson. Yeah, Jimmy from the number. I don't remember.
and Nick Adcock will carry on second race in the Victoria Cross this year LMP3 car.
That's on Sunday.
So the adventure continues, and we look forward to some results. Their son Woodley and Andrew Colton, they go to Autodrome in Lagos. Country.
For the Porsche Endurance Series South America.
South America, it's like saying Kyalami is in Africa. It's South Africa, China.
Okay.
It's Autodrome Interlagos. It's the Rotax Max Championships, World Championships.
Yes.
Kicks off and there's 7. You said there's South Africans, how many?
11.
11.
Yeah. 11.
And of those, you've got the most successful driver in the history of Rotax Max Championships, Cristiano Morgado.
Yeah, he's the most winningest driver in that series.
Is winning us even a word?
I just made it up.
Gary, I'm glad you joined the program because winning us is proper. And then what? Kelvin.
Oh, didn't he come back to South Africa?
Oh, it's Abu Dhabi Formula One, but hey.
Yeah. It's wrapped up.
Yeah, no, but Kimmy's going to have another go because he can and
Because he can
because he's
make that Ferrari pretty wide.
now he's the Kimster, and apparently McLaren are going to let their number 2 driver Bottas win because that's how they roll their group. And then the exciting part
I actually don't know what WRX is. WRX is the World Rally Championship.
Rally Cross Championship. That's what the X is.
Okay.
Gary, you're not focusing. You have too many energy drinks and your mind's going like a rabbit.
What line?
Exactly. So it's WRX. It's the final round of the championship. It's at Kalani, and Kelvin van der Linde is taking over the Audi South Africa Instagram account. So for those of you who don't follow Audi South Africa on Instagram, Kelvin, you owe us for this group. Go to Instagram and follow Audi South Africa, and then from Friday, Kelvin will be taking over, and you can interact with him at the World Rally Cross Championships. I'm not a fan of it. I find it too, basically it's a drag race to the first corner, and then you smack each other.
Gary, why is the microphone off?
Because they just told me.
Okay, awesome, thanks. So to repeat, Kelvin van der Linde is taking over the Audi account, the Instagram account, go to the Instagram account, go and check it out, be nice, interact. I'm not a fan of WRX. It's a drag race to the first corner, then you mur each other, and then some oak from the north of wherever of Europe goes and wins it. He's a Strom winner, ex-Strom winner, Bergstrom winner, a Nordic oak wins it, and then it takes 2 minutes.
Yeah, then it's over and done with, and
I'm not a fan.
I'm out of here.
Right, you out of here.
Guys, thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot for watching. Whatever you do, be safe, be nice, and D-back. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week for episode number next. And it's been fun. And thank you very much to Terence Marsh of Redline Motoring Adventures. Have a great one. Bye.